been knocking around the Sage Timberline world for more years than I care to think about, and was around in the early days when these products were being developed. And I remember sitting in a session where they showed us the report designer. Of course, we were coming out of a DOS environment at that point, and when we first saw it, literally all the dealers in the room started clapping because we'd never seen anything like it. So that being said, I'm going to try and move along at a pretty good pace. I have a tendency to run long on my webinars, so I'm going to try and stay within a 30-minute window. We'll see how successful I am. And today's agenda is going to look something like this. We're going to talk about what you already have today in terms of your product mix, in terms of reporting tools. We're going to talk about the foundations that need to be built before you start building reports. We're going to talk about the Sage Report Designer. We'll talk about Crystal Reports. We'll talk about the Financial Statement Report Designer. We're going to talk about Event One products, which are now marketed by Sage, both the Office Connector and their new Connector Financials system. And then we'll talk about resources on helping you achieve development of new reports if you need them. And as you might guess, we got a lot of content here, and so we're not going to be diving extremely deep. The idea is hopefully to introduce you to all the products and let you know what's out there, and then if you need more information, you can contact us. So we'll move on at this point. And so what do you have today? And so about 98% or so, at least Sage tells me this, of the existing Sage 300 customers, Timberline clients, already own the Report Designer and the Inquiry Designer. We sell it with virtually every system that we sell these days. About 40% of the customers have Crystal reports, and depending on your product mix, there are a couple of products that we sell that require you to buy Crystal when you buy it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Of course, everybody gets a Financial Statement Designer with the General Ledger system. And what you may not know is how many reports you have in the system right now. Most people are unaware that there are more reports in the system than are typically displayed on the menus. And you say, how many? Well, you've got 1,700 plus reports if you buy the full gamut of Sage software. Now you say 1,700, that's a lot of reports. And so how many reports is that? Boy, I've got way too many things open here. But I do want to show you, if I can remember just where I put it. Let's see. A little list. Where did I? Okay. That was nice. I had this open earlier. So let's do this. We'll just jump out here real quick. And we didn't. I must have closed it earlier. So I did have the forethought to put the path in. Oh, well, that's not working so well. One more time. I apologize, guys. I thought I had this open. I swear I have most of it ready to go. Copy. There we go. Copy. And somewhere on your network, there will be a folder called Report. My path may be a little different than yours, but these are all the reports that are delivered in the system already. And as you look through the list, you'll often see a report, and then some of the reports will have a CR behind them, which means it was designed in Crystal Report. So as you can see, there are 1,537 reports in this particular folder, and the service management reports are stored in a different place. There are another 150 reports or 180 reports there. So there's quite a bit of information already in the system. Let me get back down to this for you guys to work with. and be aware that all reports are not on your current menu system, and that you can go through and look for additional reports. Now, when you installed the software, and for many of you this will be years and years ago, and you may not remember any of this, but there was a question that came along and asked you what kind of a contractor or what kind of company you were, whether you were a general contractor, a subcontractor, a home builder, or a developer property manager. Based on how you selected what question you selected there, it installed a report set that it thought was appropriate for that particular type of company. So there are literally hundreds of other reports out there for other types of companies, and you can go out and take a look, and I think you'll find you'll be surprised at the number of reports that are available to you may not know exist at this point in time. As we move on here, report menu, within each application, and we'll come back in here again, and this time we'll go to job cost. And under reports, you'll of course see all of the various reports you have, and you can see down here at the bottom I've added some reports, and you guys will do that through the report manager. Each application has a report manager, which allows you to go through and add, change, delete, rearrange your reports. And as you can see, the report menu within each of the applications supports a Timberline report design, a Crystal report design, or an Office Connector design. So those components can all be there, and even if you've got a custom written from the ground up, we can connect to that as well. So if you're not familiar with that tool, I think you should get familiar with it again. And let me get this back, close this window, minimize this, and continue on. Your Sage desktop also contains a Crystal report, and I know that there's a little two-click happy right there. I'll try one more time. And where did my desktop go? There we go. So a lot of customers who've had the software for a long time may not be using the desktop, and there are reports that can run in the desktop, and most people are not aware that when you're running the desktop that it's not consuming a use of any of your applications. So you have the ability to generate, design a report. This happens to be a Crystal report that is right here, and we'll come back to this and show you how we can drill down through it here in a few minutes. But those of you who have not used the desktop, we would highly recommend you start using it, and in particular probably save some uses if you're looking up key information, particularly managers within the company. Come back in. Continuing on in terms of, and I really probably should have said expectations and then foundations, the order in which I'm going to talk about things. Not everyone in a company is really set up to design reports, either physically with the software or, intellectually. If you've not had some background in using systems and how databases are structured and so forth, it can be a little challenging to build something beyond a very basic report. And generally within companies, there will be one or two people who do most of the reports, and I think that that's a very good number to work with. You don't want everybody doing their own thing. You want somebody centralized managing how reports are designed, storing them so that you can come back to them later if you need to modify them. And generally it's going to need to be somebody who, again, understands the database structures in general terms, how databases work, but in more specific terms, the Timberline structure, the Sage 300 structure, how information is stored and where it is stored, and when you pick a particular field, what information is going to display. I've not gone through in recent years and figured how many fields there are in the Timberline database, but there are literally thousands and thousands of fields of information, and without some experience, it sometimes is a little hard to ferret out exactly which piece you need to pull. That being said, the way that you can familiarize yourself with these fields in a couple of different ways. Within the Sage Report Designer, and there we go. If you go to Tools, you go to Available Fields. This is going to show you all of the various tables that are available within Timberline. And in this case, I'm going to come down to the AP vendor, and when I open this up and preview it, we'll take a look here. And you're going to see the vendor name, excuse me, the field name, starting with vendor, and what type of field is it? Is it an alpha field, a name field, a phone number, and so on, and what is the size? And as you scroll down, whether there are any special values. So inside the system, you have some choices in what type of vendor we have, and this is what we have typically set up, at least what is set up in my system. So this is going to help you in understanding what fields you want to select, how big is it, and if there are any additional components that you may want to look up in there. So that is method number one, comes with your software. It's in the Report Designer. Method number two is Event One. Of course, they have brought us the Office Connector products, and we'll talk a bit more about them. But they have a set of database manuals, reference guides, that break the system into three areas: accounting, construction, and property management. The accounting are going to be the common modules like accounts payable and accounts receivable and general ledger and so on. And it will list every field, the programmer's name, that they use, the common name, an explanation. It actually gives more information than the available fields report within the Report Designer. If you're going to be doing any detailed, significant reporting using either Sage's Report Designer or Crystal Reports, you really want to have these books, and they're $139 each. You can order them directly off the Event One website. They're very good tools, and quite frankly, the folks that we employ who do a lot of report designing for our customers use these books quite extensively. That being said, let's talk about the tools. And so the Sage Report Designer, okay, is the most commonly used tool in reporting in the Sage 300 Timberline products. And because of time constraints, we're not going to be able to hit every point, every plus, and every minus of every application. So I've picked a few which I think are important, should help you understand better what these products are and how they work. And again, at the end of the seminar, our webinar, we'll talk about where you can go ahead and connect with us and get more information that you need it. So in terms of advantages, one of the biggest advantages of the Sage Report Designer is it was designed just for the Sage 300 CRE product, the Sage Timberline product. Now, it does not work with purchase order, inventory, and service management, which were products that we bought and then have modified and connected to our system. So it was not designed to work with them. They work with Crystal, but you know, it is a plus because the system, the Report Designer knows the system you're dealing with. And from a design standpoint in designing reports, I don't want to lead you to believe that every report is easy to design. There are simple and moderately complex and very complex reports that can be designed. The Sage Report Designer is a easy-to-go, very easy-to-use report designer, as report designers go, for simple and moderately complex designs. When you get into more complex designs, then you're going to have somebody who understands kind of how data is flowing around. The advantage, again, of it being designed for Sage 300 is it knows the Sage 300 database. We were able to incorporate into it what you typically do with a field. Is this a field that we normally would like to see totaled in a report? Is this a field that we normally sort on? And if we do, what way do we normally sort it? So in many cases, as we select fields and put them into a design, it is going to default to totaling and sorting in certain ways and certain other things as well to make the designing process easier. you usually can override those choices if that's not what you want to have done. Another advantage is it has a simple report designer letter writer merge field capability within the system. It has the ability to create very strong if-then type formulas to do calculations and display information. I can remember certain customers having certain performance ratios and things that were unique to their particular company, and we were able to design reports that drop those ratios into columns for them so that they knew how their production was going. Other advantages continue to include things like sorting up to 15 levels. I seldom see anything sorted more than about 5, but go up that level. The system will preset how many spaces between each line. So if we're listing invoices and vendors, how many spaces between the vendor and the invoices, how many spaces, line spaces between each of the lines there when you're looking at the invoices. So again, that can be modified, but the system's going to make some choices for you, again, making that process a little easier. Required and optional prompt for fields. What this means is I can design a report and have it ask me questions before it starts running. Do I want to include this? Do I want to sort it by project manager? Or do I want to sort it by job? Do I have a range of dates? Only look from January 1st to January 15th for something like that. This was unique to the Sage Report Designer, and it wasn't until recent release of Crystal that they actually added that capability. It has good print controls, and without going into too much detail, essentially your ability to section off the report and say whether it should repeat on subsequent pages, tell it how it should print when it actually processes the information. And very good font controls, what size font, what colors you want. I know most people don't use colors in their reports, and if you do, you have to have a color printer, and it consumes color ink and so on. But the standard reports that come from Sage are built in fairly benign fonts, and if you ever get to the point where you want better looking reports, you can open those up, change the fonts. You may have to rearrange the information slightly to give it room for the fonts to print, but it is certainly a capability within the system. Now, that being said, what are the disadvantages of the Sage Report Designer? The letters and documents that it can print are really only one page long. So if we're going to generate lien releases or something like that, and ours is a multi-page lien release, it becomes more challenging to do that in Sage's Report Designer. When you are designing on the screen, this is a word we don't see a whole lot of these days, WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. So as I'm dragging stuff around, it's still kind of a texty looking interface, and if you're putting big fonts in and so on, you have to allocate space on the screen because it doesn't really take up the space. So it takes a little while to learn the nuances of using that particular report designer from a spacing standpoint. There are no charts or graphs. The plus and minus of that is Crystal does those kinds of things quite well, but it takes a lot of time to build those. And what you'll find is that the Sage Report Designer is much easier to use because they don't do a lot of this. There's no advanced formatting. When I say advanced formatting, the ability to draw boxes around sections or to put shading in an area or use multiple colors in a shading scenario. So again, these are things we'll find in Crystal, and of course the only other thing we need to talk about is it only runs with Sage 300. It doesn't run with any other applications. It does not have any drill downs. I'm often asked in presentations, can we drill down from level to level in your reports? And the answer to that question is with the Report Designer, no. With Crystal Reports, yes. And of course we have our inquiry system, which we're really not going to talk about today, but that was our drill down capability when we designed the system rather than put drill downs in the reports, we built a separate system for that. Now, Crystal Reports, just so you know, is a product owned by SAP. It is sold worldwide to thousands, tens of thousands, millions of companies, and there are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of software development companies that use Crystal as their report designer. Sage is a little unique in that we have our own report designer, and in addition to that, we have Crystal. Many, many of our competitors don't have their own report designer. They only use Crystal. So what are the advantages for Crystal? It's a very powerful designer. It is a great tool. It has a very big feature set. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. It allows you to report against multiple data sets. So with a full-blown version of Crystal Reports, you can pull information from 2 or 3 different databases into one report. Not truly a requirement for what we mostly do with Sage 300, but it is in fact a capability of the Crystal system, and some companies that are big and sophisticated and have multiple databases running will want to use Crystal to consolidate information from multiple databases into a printed report. It supports graphics, so charts and graphs and so on. And so we'll come back and take a quick look at the desktop here. And I'm too clicky. Where am I? There we go. And so if we scroll down, this is a Crystal report in the desktop. And you'll see these nice pie charts. And depending on how you design this, if I click on this, in this case, it breaks this out as a separate chart for me if I want to. Really nice to be able to put that kind of stuff in there. You will not do this with Sage's Report Designer. We'll come back here again. And the next item is it supports drill downs, or reports within reports. And the question is, what does that really mean? And again, we'll come right back to where we were. And if we look here, you'll see job profit summary. So here's a drill down. I click on one line item, and it takes me to another report within this. And depending on the design, I could select numbers here and drill down on it. So depending on how you put the design together, you can drill down through levels of Crystal reports and display all kinds of information. If we come back here, of course, we also do great forms control, and you'll see that Timberline, for instance, uses Crystal reports in certain places. In our accounts receivable and billing system, most of the invoices there are designed with Crystal reports. And the reason for that is when you're designing forms, you need to print things in boxes, doing things like that. Crystal is a better tool to do that kind of work. Designing purchase orders, to get a nice looking form with boxes and shading and wonderful things on it, you really need to use Crystal reports, and that's one of the reasons it's available. And why you can design things in Crystal and just add them as a report menu item within the standard applications themselves. Now, continuing on, what are the disadvantages of Crystal? And there's a very long learning cycle for the product. A typical Crystal training class is usually not any less than 3 or 4 days. There are classes, if you look very hard, you can find people who have run a class that basic learning is a week, advanced learning is another week. It's a pretty strong product to learn how to use. That being said, you can also use it to open up existing designs, and sometimes if there's small changes, they're pretty easy to do. Some argue that you almost need to be a programmer to use this tool. I don't go quite that far, but I run into 2 types of people out in the marketplace who have had exposure to Crystal reports. There are those who've had it, have used it, and don't want to ever see it again. I've run into another group of people who have had it, used it, think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I will say the people who think it's the best thing since sliced bread is usually a smaller group of people, and they tend to be more technical in nature. Certainly the programmer types like it because you can do all kinds of stuff with it. That's why I tend to say when people are designing reports, there are one or two people in the company, and if they're up to speed on IT issues and up to speed on the database, they can move through Crystal reports pretty quickly. Because it knows nothing about your software, Crystal reports, because it is used on thousands of different systems. It doesn't know anything about Sage 300. You're going to teach it everything. You're going to tell it how to do everything. And in many cases, to design a similar type report, you're going to spend 3 to 4 times as much time doing it in Crystal as you would in Timberline's Report Designer. So if I design an accounts payable report in Timberline's Report Designer, in the Sage Report Designer, it might take an hour, let's say. It could easily take 2, 3, or 4 hours to do a similar report in Crystal. Now, the flip side of that is you may have some graphics and nice boxes and a nicer looking report in Crystal than you would have gotten out of the Report Designer from Sage. And I like to point out that most people, if they need to do a quick report, they're looking for a particular piece of information, they just need a couple of columns of information, the Timberline Sage Report Designer is going to be the tool you want to use. It is going to be the quickest way to pull some out. Literally, once you know the tool, in a couple of minutes, literally, you can design a report. It is also not easy to change direction once a design is started. If you go down the path of selecting certain fields and think that the driving record is going to be the accounts payable vendor file, the most important record, and then later you figure out, oh, really, I need to make that the accounts payable invoice file. It's very hard for the system to make that fundamental shift, so you often end up going back and starting over in the design world. And to some degree, that'll happen in Sage's Report Designer as well. Now, the Financial Statement Designer, I'm going to move on this pretty quickly. It's designed to only work with Timberline's general ledger, period, end of story, optimized to generate financial statements only, supports horizontal and vertical formatting. Let me give you an example. A lot of people aren't aware of this, and where did I put it? I think this is it. Oops, I always take my finger out of the way too soon. There we go. Oops, try that one more time. There we go. So this is an example of a horizontal financial statement. Across the top, we list companies. So here's the income statement for Gateway. Here's the income statement for Rose City, and then we can total those. So it is a very nice financial statement designing tool. Gives you a lot of flexibility. Again, it's one of those things you have to climb into and learn a bit about. There are lots of tools involved that will allow you to do analytic type formulas and comparative analysis in the system. A couple of things. Beyond 2 years, and if you've used the financial statement that comes standard in the system, you'll know that you can have a rollback. So I've got a financial statement. If I want to reprint a financial statement from 6 months ago, I say roll back 6 months. And the Financial Statement Designer, a few years ago, Sage, I should say in the general ledger, they increased the size of the database from a couple of years of history to 10 years worth of history. And now you can print financial statements going back 10 years, but the Financial Statement Designer only supports the rollback for a 2-year period. If you have to design something further back than that, you actually have to design it for the particular period. Now, once you've done that, you can copy it and change the periods, and it's not that big a deal, but you'll end up with a series of financial statements. If you want one for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago, you're going to design one and then copy it twice, and you're going to end up with 3 designs to go back to year 3, year 4, and year 5. That being said, some of you may have seen Let's see, where am I here? I have too many things open on the screen, don't I? So when we go to run a financial statement, the system will ask me this question about rollbacks. And notice it starts at period 0 and goes back 25 periods. So that is the extent of what you get, and you're going to be stopped at that point, and you'll just have to design financial statements for the particular periods back in time you want to go. If you look at the particular designs and we go to the GL fields, you'll see year-end balances going back 10 years. And you'll see period activity. So if I wanted 8 years ago, 6 months, there is a field sitting out there. Since we're not doing rollbacks, you would have to say which period you want to roll back to. You'd have to design that into the form itself. Now, Office Connector. Some of the newer tools that are out, Office Connector Query was written by a company called Event One. Some of you may have it already. The Office Connector product is now sold and supported by Sage, so you can buy it from us locally and get support directly from Sage Corporation on that. It is an Excel-based reporting tool. I said it replaces Microsoft Query. It really is an adjunct or an add-on to Microsoft Query, which comes with Excel. And it's much, much easier to use. Query is a little cryptic in the way it works, in my opinion. And this makes life much easier if you want to connect an Excel spreadsheet directly to the database you're working with Timberline. You know, creates an add-on into the Excel spreadsheet. So let's come back here and see. Oops. Where am I going here? And if we come over here to add-ins, you'll see a whole series of add-ins that are put in here, and little toolbars, buttons, and things that help us to connect directly to the Sage database without having to go through a whole series of kind of big steps. Oops. Everyone running on the current version of Sage 300 actually has 4 designs delivered to them on the with the product. So you have the ability to go in and test some of the designs that are out there. See again if I can. Pretty small print on the screen for this guy who needs glasses. Okay, where did... Let's see. There we go. I finally get there. So the starter is delivered, and these are little starter points that come with the software. And, you know, these are the reports that come with, down to this point where write starts, that come with the full-blown system. Now, these are things that they deliver. You'll be able to design your own and go on from there. You know, so, you know, you get 20 designs there, and there is a designer and a user version of the software, because once you design something, just like a report designer, then you got people who want to run them, and you want to be able to press the button that says refresh. So somebody could design it, hand it off to someone else who periodically opens the spreadsheet, hits the refresh button, it pulls the current data from Timberline's database and displays it in Excel in the format you want to see. You know, I just showed you a group of Excel designs that come with the system. And, excuse me, let me show you, let me come back in here. See if I can get to the one I was looking for. I ended up with too many things open here. Is this the, yeah, there we go. So here we have a work in process report that was designed in Excel. And by simply, I'm going to turn my, enable my macros on here. I'm going to hit the refresh button right here. And bear with me. The system is asking me which database I'm going to work with if I have more than one database. And the system is then going to take information from Sage's database and populate it into the spreadsheet here, so that you can pretty much put anything you want, any information. You can have the system calculate columns. And one of the add-on products from Office Connector is a write product, which would allow you to key in percent completes and then write those back into the Sage Timberline database. Bear with me there. My throat was getting a little raspy. I had to take a little sip of iced tea. That being said, there are a number of, excuse me, I'm on to the financial side. I'm sorry. There's 6 financial designs that come with the new financial side of Office Connector. Again, to give you an idea what those look like. Let's see. That's where I just was. Process, there we go. And so here's an empty financial statement, and you would answer some questions about what year you want to run and what period, and whether it's cash or accrual, and we're going to be comparing budgets, and then we simply press the refresh key, and at that point it's going over into Timberline's database and pulling information from excuse me, from the general ledger. In this particular design, it's pulling both master file information and transaction information and pulling all of that information into a series of tabs on the spreadsheet that are going to allow you to look at this and then drill down to the detail you want to see. So if we look at this, we'll see this, and we can open or close these little sections right here, depending on how you have the system set up. And we come down and look at information. If we come down to some expenses, let's say other expenses, and if I click on this cell, it'll actually drill down and it will display, there we go, the information that made up that amount that is being displayed on the screen at that point. Pretty nice capability. And of course, once you pull this information out, you don't have to be connected to the Sage database anymore. So I can save this spreadsheet, send it on to somebody for review, and they can drill down into the system like this. It adds some new features in the designing component to make it easier to do financial statements. You can roll back and roll forward a number of periods, in all 10 of those years if you want to. Now, we've already run over a little bit, and I wanted to make you aware of some of the resources that are available. Sage, just so everybody understands, Sage will not support you in building designs. They're going to solve problems with the report designer. So if it's supposed to be totaling and it's not totaling, that feature's not working, Sage will help you with that. If you call them up and ask them, can you help me design a report that totals the following, they're going to refer you back to your dealer for additional help. Sage University has a number of courses on how to use the report designer and financial statement designer. If you go to the live classes, they're going to be a charge for those. There are some replays of previously recorded classes that are free of charge. If you are not familiar with Sage University, you need to become familiar with it because it has a great wealth of training tools available to you. Of course, you have the Sage knowledge base. Again, if you're not using it, you should be. This will give you a number of tools that will help you. You can look up articles that will help you design reports. Of course, your Sage consultant, some of you may not have worked with any of our consultants in some time. Most of our consultants, I shouldn't say this, all of our consultants are up to speed on the Sage report designer. Many of them are also up to speed on Crystal reports. And you can contact our corporate office if you need certain reports done, and we will either assign a consultant or work with you to find out what your reporting requirements are and give you a quote on putting that report design together. Of course, if you need any of these products, interested in crystal reports or interested in any of the Event One Office Connector products, contact your Alliance sales rep. I've run about 15 minutes over, so I'm going to wind this up. Thank everybody for coming in today. My Sage email address is jham@alliance-sg.com. Feel free to call the office, ask for your sales rep if you don't know who it is. If you are not sure where to go, you can feel free to send me an email, and I'll make sure that things get routed to the correct person. I appreciate everybody's time today. We're not going to do questions and answers because that could run quite a lengthy period of time. Again, you have my email address. If you have particular questions, feel free to just shoot me an email. I will either answer it or I will forward it to someone who will respond to you very quickly. Again, thank you very much for your time today, and if we can be of any assistance to you, please give us a call. Have a great day.